Welcome to the deep dive.
Hello.
Today, we are taking a plunge into something pretty fascinating, a cultural shift that, well, the sources we've got argue has really reshaped Hollywood.
Yeah, one of the most iconic industries out there.
Exactly. We're talking about the apparent decline of the traditional movie star.
It's a feeling I think a lot of us have had, right? Something's different over the last, say, decade or so, but maybe hard to put your finger on why.
Totally. And we've got quite a stack of material here. Insights from HuffPost, the Daily Free Press, The Guardian. They're all looking at how Hollywood changed, especially during the 2010s.
Different angles, different takes.
Yep. So our mission today is to unpack all this, pull out the key bits, and try to figure out, what happened to those massive, larger-than-life figures who used to rule the box office.
And importantly, what does it all mean for you, the person watching?
That's the crucial part. It goes beyond just who's famous now versus then.
Right, it touches on storytelling itself, celebrity, how we connect with media.
Okay, let's dive in. To really get this decline, we first need to define what these sources mean by a traditional movie star. Because it wasn't just fame, was it?
No, not at all. The sources are pretty clear. A movie star, in that classic sense, was someone who audiences loved, like time and time again, based on them, their persona.
Their own merit, basically. And crucially, they could carry a film, a whole project, that wasn't tied to some, pre-existing franchise or comic book.
Yeah, they capture the mood, the zeitgeist, just by being compelling, likable. And look, they had to play the celebrity game, too. Feed that public interest.
Oh, absolutely. And the bottom line, box office. People went because that star was in it.
Definitely. And this isn't new. The sources mention that way back in silent films, people were writing letters, desperate to know who they were watching. Imagine.
That's incredible. It really shows the power of just a person on screen. And the old studios, Paramount, Warner Brothers, MGM, they built this.
Oh, yeah. From the 20s right up to the early 2000s, they had what one source calls a star-making cocoon. They controlled everything.
Vertical integration, right. Finding talent, making the film, showing it in their theaters. Stars were like gods. They drove the whole business.
They really were the engines. Think of the names the sources bring up. Joan Crawford, Robert Redford, Will Smith, Julia Roberts, Whoopi Goldberg, Jim Carrey.
Charlie Chaplin, Paul Newman.
Right. And there was even this sense of, succession. Tom Hanks stepping into Jimmy Stewart's shoes, Meryl Streep following Katharine Hepburn, Denzel Washington carrying on from Sidney Poitier.
But then things started to change. And this is where it gets really interesting, according to the sources. Several big forces kind of converged.
And they started pulling apart that cocoon.
Exactly. One huge moment, HuffPost really flags this, was the Disney-Marvel deal. December 31st, 2009.
Wow, right at the end of the decade. They call it an untimely death for the movie star era. Bit dramatic, but you see their point.
Yeah, because suddenly Disney owns thousands of characters, established beloved characters.
Meaning the cinematic universe becomes the draw.
The brand becomes the star, not the actor.
Which leads right into the next point, the massive rise of franchises and IP, intellectual property.
Right. The Daily Free Press points out that after 9/11 especially, Hollywood got, scared of risk.
Understandably, maybe. But it meant studios leaned hard into safer bets, more homogenous genres like superhero movies.
And these hyper-capitalistic cinematic universes, as they call them.
Which is basically, these huge interconnected worlds like Marvel's, designed to just keep going, keep making money off the characters.
And the actors in them. Talented, sure, but kind of.
Largely beside the point is the phrase used, for the universe's success anyway. The goal shifts from telling stories for viewers to servicing trademarks for fans.
In Iron Man in 2008, that was the proof of concept, wasn't it? Made a ton of money.
Over $500 million, yeah. The Daily Free Press says it basically cemented the superhero as a new commercial product, something reliable.
So if you want to mass entertain globally, relying on one star's charm is suddenly
strategically unreliable.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's safer to bet on Spider-Man because, as they imply, anyone can be Spider-Man. The IP is king.
Okay, so you've got the rise of IP, then add in the economy.
Yep, the 2008 crash. Studios got way less willing to pay those huge A-list salaries, $10 million, $20 million a movie.
Especially when CGI budgets were going through the roof.
And those mid-budget movies, the ones that weren't giant blockbusters but weren't tiny indies either, the crowd pleasers.
Like Ghost or Jerry Maguire, the kind of film stars used to thrive in.
They started vanishing, partly because VHS and DVD sales collapsed. That reliable second income stream just dried up.
Okay, so IP dominance, economic pressure, and then the internet really kicks into high gear.
Mid-2000s. YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, streaming arrives.
Changes everything about access. Suddenly, movies and TV are everywhere, not just in theaters.
So yeah, cinema attendance drops, DVD sales plummet further, and films become, as one source puts it, objects for consumption.
Studios start using algorithms, targeted marketing, trying to engineer hits based on data, not just star power.
It's less about magic, more about math.
And those really good actors, the ones wanting meaty original roles.
A lot of them started looking at TV, the TV renaissance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which then blew up into the streaming boom. The best scripts weren't always for the big screen.
And the final piece, maybe the biggest culture shock, social media.
Right.
Yeah.
YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, it completely democratized fame. Movie stars lost their monopoly on public attention.
The sources talk about this exasperating read of influencer microfame, this performance of like quasi-unfiltered selfhood.
It looks real, even if it's curated, and the dynamic flips. Instead of us looking up at stars, people increasingly want others to relate to them.
Their own online lives become central, and that distant, managed movie star image just doesn't fit that equation anymore.
Plus, one source bluntly says social media murdered our attention spans,
Mm.
making it harder to sink into a 2-hour movie, maybe.
Could be. So, okay, those are the forces. What are the signs, the symptoms of this decline that the sources point to in the 2010s?
Well, HuffPost is pretty blunt. It says the 2010s produced fewer real movie stars, capital M, capital S, than any decade since the 1920s.
Wow. And think about today's biggest names. Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Chris Hemsworth.
Their huge global fame comes from Marvel,
Yeah.
right? Projects that kind of sell themselves.
And the sources say their asking price drops way down when they do a movie outside that superhero bubble.
Yeah. The Guardian uses Chris Hemsworth's In the Heart of the Sea as an example. Didn't do well. Thor is huge, Hemsworth on his own. Less of a guaranteed draw, commercially speaking.
It's a good test, actually. Try naming 2 Chris Evans roles that aren't Captain America or Human Torch. For a lot of people, it's tough.
Anthony Mackie Falcon, Captain America, he nailed it. He said, Anthony Mackie isn't a movie star, the Falcon is a movie star.
That just says it all, doesn't it?
Perfectly. And even actors who weren't primarily franchise stars, like Melissa McCarthy or Kevin Hart, saw their drawing power dip in the 2010s.
Jennifer Lawrence, too. Remember, she was America's sweetheart. But the sources note she hasn't had a real box office hit since 2016 after a few misses.
And the veterans. Sandra Bullock, George Clooney, Matthew McConaughey guys, whose careers were built on adult dramas, comedies.
They found success harder to come by, or at least more intermittent, as those kinds of movies became rarer in cinemas.
Think about Octavia Spencer. Wins a supporting actress Oscar in 2011. Doesn't get offered a lead role in a major film until 2019.
That tells you a lot about what was getting made and who they trusted to lead it.
Leonardo DiCaprio is maybe the big exception they point to. He kind of weathered the decade, mostly sticking to big directors and prestige films, avoiding the franchise machine.
It's also interesting that a lot of today's star vehicles feature older actors. Cruise, Pitt, Bullock, Wahlberg, J-Lo.
Right, the average age for top leads in 2022 was apparently 56. These are stars who established themselves before this big shift.
And you see that reverse exodus, big movie stars heading to TV and streaming, Keanu Reeves, Harrison Ford, Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts.
McConaughey, Sean Penn. The list is long. Julia Roberts herself said the business has changed entirely, feels less sturdy.
Yeah. And that direct link, great performance equals big box office equals star power. It's gotten muffled, right? Especially with streaming numbers being so opaque compared to ticket sales.
Totally muddied the waters.
There's also this feeling, reading the sources, that moviegoing has lost some sense of discovery, if everything's a sequel or setup.
Character arcs can feel incomplete. Everything builds to the next thing.
Yeah.
And the green screen effect, making things feel unworldly.
They contrast Anne Hathaway in Princess Diaries or Brokeback Mountain with her in, say, Alice in Wonderland. Different kind of performance, different kind of connection.
And this has even led to public fights, right? Like Scarlett Johansson suing Disney over the Black Widow streaming release and her pay.
Yeah, the whole economic model is out of whack with the old star system.
So if the traditional movie star is fading, what's lost?
Hmm.
And is anything gained?
Well, the big loss, according to the sources, is the movie star as this central cultural figure, a touchstone.
Yeah, and losing that experience of seeing one person reveal different facets through different roles, reflecting the world back at us.
One source says the business can't even pretend it's about art anymore. Commerce is clearly the only driver now.
And that old supremacy of the star is just gone, replaced by the democratized fame of social media.
We don't get to grow old with our idols in the same way, watch them evolve on screen. And those unique personality traits, Bette Davis's eyes, Kathleen Turner's voice, Eddie Murphy's laugh.
They feel like they have a sell-by date now, maybe, because the focus isn't on that specific human presence as much.
There's talk of an infantilization of entertainment, more fast-paced sensory assaults, less grounded human stories.
And it's kind of sad timing, as one source points out, because this is happening just as Hollywood finally started making progress with diversity.
Right. The worry is that even talented actors from underrepresented groups might become interchangeable if they're mostly plugged into existing IP.
Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger is mentioned brilliant performance, but was the role serving the franchise's needs above all? It's a question they raise.
The overall feeling is that our connection to actors is just shallower now. The mystique is gone.
The gods are gone, as one critic put it. Social media stripped it away. We used to gaze up at the screen.
That critic, Ty Burr, also said something interesting. We want the stars, but we want what they have even more. Maybe our own desire for visibility changed the game, too.
That's a sharp point. But are there any gains in all this?
Maybe a few silver linings. For most industry workers, not the absolute top stars, it might be more of a seller's market now, just so much content being made.
And possibly a return to focusing on the craft of acting, valuing dedication, transformation, the things Brando or James Dean wanted recognition for, beyond just glamour.
That's an interesting thought. And they also talk about the neo-star.
Right, actors who can navigate both worlds, like Adam Driver, maybe Jennifer Lawrence still, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Doing huge franchise films and serious, acclaimed indie stuff, threading the needle.
Kind of a new hybrid model.
Yeah.
And there's this idea of celebrity socialism.
Which sounds provocative. What's that mean?
Film historian Janine Basinger's term. Basically, the means of production of stardom aren't solely controlled by studios anymore. They're in the hands of the people via TikTok, Instagram.
Ah, so anyone can build an audience now, bypass the old gatekeepers.
Exactly. The public has a more direct role in deciding who gets famous. It shifts the power dynamic.
Okay, so we've gone through the history, the causes, the effects. What does this all really boil down to for you, the listener?
Well, it's not just trivia. It shows a real shift in industry values. Product over people, maybe? Capital over craft.
And that shapes the stories we get. The films that make it to your local cinema or pop up first on Netflix.
It also changes how you interact with fame. Less gazing up at larger-than-life figures.
More scrolling through relatable, maybe curated glimpses of influencers' lives. It's a different relationship.
Definitely. So this whole decline isn't just about Hollywood changing its business model. It's a mirror.
Reflecting bigger shifts in culture, how we see public figures, entertainment, maybe even ourselves.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the sources, the move from actor-driven films to IP dominance.
The impact of economics, tech, social media.
And how it's changed things for actors and for the movies we see.
Yeah, the sources really paint a picture of something lost, a certain kind of shared icon, a certain way of telling stories.
A cultural casualty, perhaps?
So here's a final thought to chew on. If that traditional movie star, the one built on personality, on embodying diverse human experiences, if that figure is fading.
What's replacing them?
Yeah.
What are our main cultural touchstones now?
And what does the nature of those new touchstones tell us about what we value today?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.